Hello, welcome to what I think is episode 6 of the Lowdown with Tony Lowe, and I am here today with Eric Oblander. Did I say your name correctly?
Yes, you did. That's correct.
Fantastic. Eric is a man of many skills and jobs. So you're mostly a post-production guy. Would that be a thing to say? You're still with Buckeye?
So I am a producer at BCAN. I produce most of the music stuff. I have a show called Rise Up, and then we have a little spinoff called Rise Up Live, which is has turned into what used to be kind of like a cool and still is kind of like a cool like Austin City Limits kind of thing.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like a way for local musicians that are out of work to kind of get on TV and show their PayPal stuff and kind of get out there. So that's kind of where that is at. But then I produce Rise Up, which is like kind of just like our local catch-all music show.
Yeah. And let's see, what else? Yeah, you do freelance stuff, video.
Yeah.
Right.
I've done some rock videos.
Yeah. And more
freelance stuff.
Yeah, more importantly, as far as my enthusiasm for the gentleman, Eric's been a fixture of high quality to the music scene of Northwest Ohio and beyond for a while. So I remember you being involved with Big Chief.
Yes.
Being involved, obviously, to those who know you, with Five Horse Johnson.
Yes.
And then, unbeknownst to me, you went off and did something with Clutch, the rock band.
Yes.
Which I didn't know about. I was a fan of yours because of the Five Horse Johnson CD. I remember when it was the Live from Griffin's Farm way back.
Yeah, the Blues for Henry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't live, but there was a live track, Odella or something.
Yeah, and we did pretty much record it live, but just not in front of people. I mean, like we just brought a little 8-track recorder out there and with Dave Morrissey and just recorded it in the room together. What
was the first song on that? Do you remember?
It's called you caught me on my flat-footed. It starts out with the Sweet Harp.
It does. And
yeah.
That's your instrument.
Oh, Let Me In. There you go. I had in my head. Yeah.
Yes. And for those who somehow are unaware, no disrespect, it's perfectly acceptable for you to be unaware. But when we talk about playing the harp, we're not talking to, he's not like an angel playing a harp. We're talking about the blues harmonica.
Yeah, I've disappointed many person when they're like, you play wah? And then I'm like, beep, beep, beep. And they're like, oh, I was thinking the harpo thing, but no.
Yeah. Oh, and if people are watching, apparently people watch this, which makes me really happy. So
I do.
Yeah, that's great. So if you're watching the show, make sure you click like and subscribe. That helps out. That's nice. And, try to get this into some more eyeballs and brains. So I'm in a mood, man. I don't know what you've been doing all day, but I've been reading and writing and typing and then I did like a fitness, because I'm also a fitness trainer. So I did like a Q&A for the university, and I've just been in the computer screen all day. So I've missed my nap. I should have had a nap. And now I'm just in kind of a lazy brain where I just want to talk about music and stuff. So yeah. I'm leaving it to you to push. If there's like stuff you want to talk about with the TV thing that I don't know about, because I know nothing, make sure that you squeeze that in.
Well, I will start off by saying a couple things. One is that you and I have a couple things in common that are interesting that you may not know.
Okay.
One is that we both played in a band with Todd Swalla, who you just had on. And two is that we are both Facebook friends with George Pelecanos.
I love George Pelecanos.
I'm reading The Night Gardener right now, and it's just funny because I was like, he came across my people you may know thing on Facebook, and I was like, oh, all right, click, and then he accepted it like about an hour later. And then the only other person was on there was you. So
That's crazy. So
I know.
when I do this, I'm sitting right by my bookshelf. So I
Yeah.
often grab books, but this is the last one. I don't know if you can see that. The Man Who
Yes.
Came Uptown. I recommend that highly. That's really good.
So I'm more of like a TV movie guy than I am a ravenous reader. But I knew from some of the scripts that he wrote that I had to read at least one or two of his books, and then and read in like a lot of the shows that he's done are pretty obvious that his writing would be awesome. And The Night Gardener is like I'm sucked in, man. It's like crazy. I'm about halfway through.
Well, that's interesting. And I didn't, maybe I knew that he had written stuff for television, but I had forgotten it.
Yeah, he did. He's done a lot of like, in not a surprising twist, a lot of like crime stuff. He did the show about like 70s like Times Square pimps. I can't think of it right now, but it's got Method Man is in it and stuff. It's really good. And he's done a lot of other weird little side writing. So
All right. All
I think
right.
he wrote for The Wire too, which that show is pretty.
Well, that makes sense. That I can see. What band were you in with Todd?
So I was the replacement singer for Sorson, which was the Necros without Barry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So we did two gigs. We did Toledo and Detroit at St. Andrews. And we had plans to do all this other stuff. And it just kind of was like, oh, that was fun. And we were kind of more, at least Andy and I were more of like, this is fun. We're not really trying to be like, let's blow people's minds and get out there. You know what I mean? Like it was just kind of fun. Plus, like, I mean, when you're 17 doing hardcore, it's like, yeah, man. But to keep that up at whatever age we were 10 years ago is like pretty exhausting, you know? So,
Yeah.
so it was cool. It was fun, Todd. So we rehearsed at the Five Horse Johnson like rehearsal spot here in town, and then so it was fun hanging out with Todd and Ron and Andy all week. Because my thing is, like when I was 15, I went on the road with the Necros and just split. Like I left, and my mom let me take summer school, and I just became a roadie for them and went on the road. So I like roadie with for them. We toured with like the Circle Jerks and stuff when I was in high school, and I was on the road with those guys like a good portion of my at least junior and senior year. And so I've been friends with those guys since I was little. So it was kind of like easy for them to ask me to do it because it was easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it wasn't a big, it wasn't like the second coming of Negative Approach, which is like bigger than the first wave of Negative Approach. This is more of I mean, it was fun, and I think we sounded pretty good, but as far as I know, that was all it needed to be. So the Sorson is the Necros backwards,
Oh,
going without the.
sorry. I had to decline a call. My computer did something weird. My computer likes to tell me that someone's trying to call me by shutting down everything I'm doing and having this tiny little square with a phone number in it. Anyway.
Attention, this phone call is very important.
Yeah, lean in because we're going to give you a miniature. Yeah. So, do you still listen to that stuff? Because I'm finding that a lot of my conversations when it goes to music, I end up talking about a lot of rock and roll bands and stuff that were really important to me when I was younger, but now I have no interest in like listening to them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes I found myself over the years I found music that reminds me of the mentality or you know what I mean? Like I listen to a lot of jazz. So or a lot of like hip hop, and that takes me back to my days, my hardcore days, but like I mean, I will play some, Necros or Misfits or Negative Approach or Minor Threat once in a while, but it's not my daily ride driver anymore, Although it's great when I busted out my skateboard, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, Minor Threat was it was a big deal like twice in my life because I was interested more in just the dedication of those guys. that was really the only hardcore band I could listen to, and then like just really actually listen to personally. And then of course later playing with Jeff was a thing.
I found that like there's a few bands that have stood the test of time that I can listen, like Black Flag. I can still listen to and be like, it sounds like dirty Black Sabbath. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just so gross that
Yeah.
it kind of still sounds right. You know, some of it just sounds very like, I don't want to say dated because it's not really dated, but it just sounds just not my jam anymore. Like I wouldn't listen to JFA on a regular basis anymore
Right.
necessarily, but like Black Flag, yeah, man, all day I could do that.
So what did you listen? What have you listened to? Like for example, today. Like say you're just kind of hanging loose. What do you put on just for your own?
It kind of bounces, man. Like some days I'm just like straight up, like I'm going to just get down with some jazz all day and just hit play on the radio station or go down like a, you know, Dexter Gordon rabbit hole or something. And then other days it's like just tons of old hip hop. Today I listened to Rover, you know, that band, this little band, Rover,
No.
ROVR. So they're good, man. They're like kind of like weird, like heavy industrial, but like hip hop elements, and Dean Tartaglia. They're good, man. They're a good band. So yeah, I kind of, you know, it's one of those generic things where people say like my tastes are all over the board, but they really are. Like I listen to old crazy reggae, just, you know, like, and I just kind of wonder at stuff like, man, how, you know, just how cool is this? And then some nights I'll, you know, crack a beer and just listen to like Metallica, you know what I mean? Like it's just, like, it just depends, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I get on like a kick. Like I could answer that question and say I like everything and really mean it. But I also get on kicks. And lately, like today while I was studying, I had boy, my brain. Lord Kitchener, Calypso. I was listening to Calypso, and I've been on an Exotica kick for months now. So these old you know, like Martin Denny and some of these characters that they kind of created a fictitious music of the islands.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying that a lot.
Yeah. There's like, um, who was it? It wasn't Burt Lancaster. Some actor had a whole side career as like a calypso artist, recording artist. I can't remember who it is, but
Oh, yeah, I don't know, but it doesn't surprise me because it was back in the day where those folks would have their formative years. It would have been kind of the hip thing, you know, the tiki
yeah.
lounge and the parrot, you know.
I remember when I used to work at Boogie Records, and that the soundtrack to the like what the hell is it, Mike Myers, like the Spy Who Shagged Me and all that
Yeah,
stuff, like the and when those came out, then everyone realized like, oh, Esquivel is a thing. So like all
yeah,
those Esquivel records came out, and that was all anyone listened to for like a year. Like,
yeah. He's another one. I've had him on lately. And then the other day, I was so in need of an open space because of our confinement, and I'm frankly getting a little bit lonely over here. I haven't touched physically another human in a very long time, and it's starting to get weird. Uh, but I wanted open spaces, and I had Aaron Copeland just roaring in here, man, and it's like I'm like, man, you know, the times are a strange, and when you got Aaron Copeland just blasting.
you just want to be on a horse riding through the plains, man.
Yeah, my neighbor's like, what the hell? I had Hoedown going.
Beef. It's what's for dinner.
Oh, I gotta tell you, man, that bugs me because Aaron Copeland as a composer is a pretty deep character, and it sucks that now it's been so co-opted by the American West as seen in cardboard background movie set. Uh,
Yep.
it really is a reduction of his work.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's that appeals to me too. Just like the Exotica, is the Hawaii or the Maui or the St. Martin that exists in a travel magazine more so than what exists in anyone's culture. Aaron Copeland is the American West in a way that never was the life of any cowboy or indigenous person. It's just
Yeah.
this wild space where you can ride the stallion of your imagination.
I was going to say, to paint that much, which by the way, that was quite nice. But that the ride, I'd like to ride the stallion of my imagination.
Yeah, man.
But it is amazing to be able to paint such an entire world with just tones. You know what I mean? It's still fascinating science.
Yeah. And what do you do for your own music? Are you playing? Do you still bust out the old harp? Do you have one of those fishing vests like the blues
Like a bandolero thing, like a John Popper deal? No,
yeah,
I don't. Yeah, no, I don't have one of those. Although they are handy and I get it, but no, I just fumble around and drop harps. Five Horse Johnson is still a band. Our guitar player Phil from Detroit, he was with us for years. He passed away about a year ago, and he was like a big, heavy part of our sound and our songwriting abilities. And so we've really been kind of circling the wagons, trying to figure out what to do, but we're not really in a hurry to do anything. It's just been kind of, like we're cool. I mean, we're not living on this, so we can just make a record when we feel like it. So I still play a lot of harp, trying to do some piano stuff. I got a bunch of guitars. I got a zither. I got a mandolin. I got some bongos. I got all sorts of stuff in here. So
wow,
banjo. I can't play any of them really well, but I'm going down that exploration trail,
Well, you can blow harp though.
Yeah, I still play a lot of harp. It's fun. There's always one around somewhere, and I've done so many guest spots on different records that I still, my music will pop up places. Like I play with like Local H or, Big Chief and, of course our bands.
What did you do with Clutch? What was that about? Because I knew remember you were saying sometimes you'll crack a beer and drink and go to Metallica.
Yeah.
So when I was middle teens, there was frequently a night with Clutch's first album, a space heater in a winter garage / barn, and a whole lot of PBR. And I can almost still smell the PBR when I imagine that first Clutch record that had the weird trucker theme.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the long story, or the short story, is that we were mutual friends, fans of each other's band, and came into contact and ended up playing shows together. And then they wanted to add some harp to their mix for a while, so they asked me if I would stay on. The slightly longer version that's really weird is that they were in town and my uncle wrote for a newspaper. This is like years ago, wrote for a newspaper, like a Michigan I forget which one it was, but he went to do an interview and they're like, "Oh, you're from Toledo. One of our favorite bands is from Toledo called Five Horse Johnson." And he said, "Well, the singer is my nephew." And they went, "Holy shit, that's amazing. Let's tell them we want to get together and hang out and whatever." So I went to the next show they played in in Toledo. And then we ended up getting some opening slots and doing some weekend dates and stuff like that. Finally, they were like, "Hey, we want you to stay on and play harp." And then it happened. It escalated quickly, man. I went from hanging out here and, going on the road. And then I went out on the road with them. And then we went to LA and recorded at Sound City. So, so we went to Sound City and recorded the From Beale Street to Oblivion album. And I played like 5 songs on that. And then I stayed on the road with them and we went to Australia a bunch of times and Europe and toured back and forth across the US. So I kind of put everything else on hold and went out with them in a tour bus for like almost 2 years. And and it was great. I mean, it was, we recorded a bunch of stuff, some record. I did a live album with them in Australia, did the Beale Street record. We did a single for Bam Margera on the Bam show thing. Met tons of cool people and just lived in a bunk. And I came off the road with them, and it was great. It was like never, I mean, it's so easy. They're such sweet guys and so nice and paid really well. Like I was making way more money than I ever expected I would as a musician. So after a couple of years, I came home and I kept thinking like, well, do I want to go back into a van? Like, can I go back into a van now? Like, I don't know. So I went back to college and got a degree in video production and blah, blah. So.
Wow. That's cool, man. That's, yeah.
Yeah. The Clutch thing was cool because it was literally organic. Like Brad and I wrote an entire album of 5-horse stuff. Fat Black Pussycat was really based on the way they wrote songs on Elephant Riders, which was this kind of like real basic punch, blah, like slow, plodding, cool, kind of funky, weird stuff. And so when we met, we were both kind of like, oh, hi, oh, hey, what's up, buddy? I like this and that. And they have like songs that they called like the 5-Horse Johnson song in their repertoire, like because Tim like ripped off one of Brad's riffs or something, So it was really organic, and we just all hung out. And we actually did a tour together in Europe in one bus with Clutch and 5-horse. That was the first thing we did together, and it was just living in this really jacked up bus. It was super gross. And but it was a fun tour. But it was like, I mean, it was a lot. I mean, there was 15 dudes in a bus, in a little bus, and then that went on and spilled over, and that's when I stayed with him. So,
yeah, that is cool, man. And when you were at Sound City, did you feel like that room and that place had a vibe? Like, could you feel the old records that were so?
Oh my God, dude. So when you go to Sound City, it's really funny because so I flew out to LA. Neil picked me up from the airport. He's like, hey, let's go grab like some food and we'll hang out and we'll take you to the studio. And to be honest, like, to plead a bit of ignorance, I didn't really super know all of the shit that came out of that studio, So I know, I've heard of that studio. Cool. It's like whatever. And so we went and ate lunch at Five Guys, In-N-Out Burger.
Good, and then that is the choice when you're in California.
Oh yeah, dude. I've done the math to figure out what's the nearest one to here, which is in Phoenix. Or at least used to be. So you go to Sound City and it's like in a compound, like a strip mall almost, like an industrial park. So you pull in, there's like a gate, and you pull in and you park, and you're kind of like, I mean, it looks like any industrial complex you'd see like near like Alexis Road and Talmadge or Telegraph and stuff. It looks nothing snazzy.
There's a lot of sprawl out there.
There's like a building outside of the building that was all glass, and they're like, oh, they're filming Pimp My Ride in there. You can see it, and you could see like they were filming like a show that I knew. So I was like, okay. So you get to Sound City and you go in there, and it's literally just like a shitty door, and you walk in like, hey, and you kind of look around like, cool, it's real old, school looking. And then pretty much every album they've ever recorded is on the walls, but you don't really start focusing on it right away. You kind of look and you're like, oh, okay, there's Nevermind. There's Ronnie James Dio. There's Working Class Dog. There's Rage Against the Machine. There's, there's all the Fleetwood Mac albums. There's, you start to put it together like some bunch of Cheap Trick stuff, and it becomes like, oh shit, And when we recorded there, Queens of the Stone Age had just been in there recording with the same producer.
Oh, wow.
So I got to play harp through Billy Gibbons' amp. Like Joe Barresi, the producer, is like, hey, you want to play through Billy Gibbons' amp? I'm like, yeah. So we literally used all the gear that was still set up from Billy Gibbons' rig, which is a little amp like this big, by the way, and just let it rip. And it was super fun, man. It was like we stayed there for 4 days, I guess, and funny, hilarious, famous people wander in and out. Like you're like, that was, like Lindsey Buckingham just showed up, or like, stopped in because he forgot a slide or something, like it.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. And then we'd hang out there all day. And luckily my harp stuff was done pretty early. So I got to hang out for just a couple of days. And that was really my first hangout in LA. So we went from like, we'd go to the studio, then go to the Roxy, the Rainbow, and then we did 2 nights at the Roxy on the next tour. So we kind of went back and visited, hey everybody, and so yeah, it was cool, man. It was quite a trip. It's like all the stuff you hear about it, and that like Dave Grohl has done in his documentaries and stuff. It's the most vibed out studio. It's really cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're not playing through Billy Gibbons' little amp, what is, because you always had, I remember way back in I don't even know when that was. It must have been the middle to early 90s when I saw Five Horse live. I mean, you had a good harp tone back then. I think you had a green bullet mic or something.
Yeah. So our whole thing with Five Horse has been kind of like try not to get too fancy with anything. You know what I mean? Like if it worked for Howlin' Wolf and it worked for like Little Walter and it worked for Muddy, it probably is fine. So like with my amp, it was a green bullet into a Fender. I have a Blues DeVille, but at first I have it over there. It's an old Gibson Skylark. And that was it. And my dad taught me how to play harmonica. Like I didn't play, I was a drummer and like a singer. And at one point during my life, I broke my foot. And so I was on a cast and I couldn't do anything for about 6 months. I was just on a cast. Yeah. And my dad was a harmonica player and played in a blues band in Saginaw back in the day with his brother. And he gave me a bunch of harps and a bunch of CDs with the keys written on them. And he was like, here, play along to these. This will be cool,
Yeah.
So I sat there and just started playing along to, on my little like Discman thing and playing along with harp. And I was really into playing I really wanted to get out and play. So I went and played with the first guy to let me on stage was Pat Lewandowski and Bobby May. They used to do this 2 big guitars Tuesday things at Frankie's.
Sure.
So I crutched up on stage on my crutches and like played harp, and they're like, oh, you can come back anytime, which of course, when you're a harp player, you're like, yeah, I'm sweet. I'm coming back. So I just kept going there every Tuesday, and then my friends started Big Chief, and then I'd go to Detroit and sit in with them. Like I'd drive up to Detroit and play with them on like St. Andrews and then come back. And but I was always playing acoustic harp, and then my dad's like, dude, you got to get a mic. Like, what are you doing? So I got a green bullet, and then I was like, oh, now I can be as sloppy as hell and it won't matter. And it sounds awesome. And then I got really into mics and got that crunchy, hairy tone.
Yeah. So for people that are listening that don't know what the heck we're talking about, so what a harmonica sounds like in a cowboy movie, like a guy sitting around the fire blowing into his harmonica. And you've probably played a harmonica in your own life at some point, even if it was a toy. So that's one harmonica sound. What we're talking about is kind of what was invented. I guess Little Walter was the first guy that I know who really dialed it in. Does that sound true?
I'd say that's pretty close. It was like that. They're really famously the experimentation that the producers did. Like I think it was Len Chess did like a lot of. I might have been him. Did a lot of like crazy. So they would run his tone through like a lead pipe and bury it underground, and mic at the other end, and all this stuff. Different ideas.
Yeah, basically when if you think industrialism and Black workers who were now no longer slaves had work opportunities in the North as the factories were ramping up production, and so headed on up and took jobs in steel mills and such. And the music of the South was now needing to be amplified. So Muddy and Howlin' Wolf and all those folks kind of figured out how to have a band doing their their music, and the equipment changed the sound, and the sound changed the nature of the music. And Little Walter and others would now need to plug somehow a harmonica into an amplifier. That doesn't work because it's not an electric instrument. So they took these mics that were very mid-range focused. They're not a mic that sounds good when you sing into.
Well, they were like PA mics from like factories, and like everyone go on break. Like they were.
Yeah.
That's the static mic. You can find them all over the place. They what looks like a green bullet was really like used for like almost like a grocery store clean up aisle 3 kind of thing.
Exactly.
In factories. So they just would steal them.
Yeah.
Or use them, I mean, like you would take them and use them that way,
And what they started to do, and what Eric's really good at, is they would cup that harmonica in their hands with the microphone in there too, and you can kind of control the sound of it and get a lot of different tonalities, and it's a whole art form in and of itself.
That's the hook. That's the hardest part, or the part that you never finish learning, is the hand, coordination with your playing and your breath control. So
yeah. And my heartbeat picks up a little bit when I hear you talk about the Gibson Skylark, because those little amps, that's how I like to play guitars, through smaller tube amps from the olden times. And
yeah.
Is that one that is is it the Crestline series, or is it the early series that's more like Tweed-like?
It's like I can show it to you. It's a tremolo. So it's got the built-in tremolo on it.
Brown.
It's like
brown.
It's black. Yeah, it's black with one big tremolo knob and then one volume knob.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah.
I like the earlier ones, but those are good for harp, those ones there. For guitar, I like the ones with this yellow nubby. Yeah, that's like we would call that like a Crestline series.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine amp. That's cool, man. And you kind of have it's the luck of the draw with the Gibsons from that era, because the circuits were all different, and even though you can find published schematics, Gibson didn't really always follow a schematic. You just don't know what's inside that thing.
Well, that amp was my dad's when he was a kid. Like, I mean, I've got a lot of his gear from when he was in the band in the 50s and 60s. So I've got like a 66 Tele that he played, and that amp, which he used to play through all the time. Crusher's
cool.
Playing piano.
It's like a Cure video all of a sudden.
Yeah, right. What are you doing, dude? He's never ever been up there, but he's like, I got to be on Tony's show.
Hey, man, everybody's trying.
All right, this is about to get hilarious. Here we go.
This is perfect.
What's up, dude?
What's up?
How are you doing? Thanks for joining us. Tell us what you think.
All the cats want to come too.
All right, hang on. Now he's putting his butt on my remotes. All right, well, you can just hang out with an ear there. Here, wait. There we go. Having a little bath. But yeah, so I've got a bunch of, that's been in the family forever. And my dad passed away a couple months ago and left me tons of cool old weird mics and gear and amps and, stuff. So
I almost don't like you when you tell me you've got a 66 Tele. I had all the great old gear and I sold it. I have precious little now.
You're welcome to come over and jam on it, bro.
Yeah. Well, let's survive the pandemic and then.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get you sick. I'm talking future days here.
Yeah, man. It's a must. Yeah.
And so that was like the thing was the hand, and then finding the right mic. And I tried a lot of different mics, and finally I just went with the classic Bullet. I'm endorsed by like a microphone company that I love their mics, but I just end up using a Bullet all the time because it's like, still the best thing.
I'm like that. I have stuff I like to use that everybody's like, but you should try this new thing that does the thing. And I'm like, I have no need of that. Like, I just plug into my little stuff and I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I guess it depends. It's funny because it's like, I also was bequeathed a full piano, and that's really fun to play. And it's funny because I got this thing which plays a million different tones and whatever you want, you know. But then I go downstairs and play the piano, and I'm like, shit, that
Yeah.
sounds amazing. Like it's
Yeah.
like, you know, like a 75-year-old piano that just blows everything else away, you know.
Yeah. So let's geek out on harp a little bit, because you mentioned, well, there's Muddy and there was Little Walter, and it's definitely a Chicago thing going on there. And then you also have Junior Wells, who did it a little differently. Um, I bring that up because I was talking to Mudfoot. Do you know Mudfoot,
Oh
Dan?
yeah, yeah, Dan's cool, man. I love that dude.
Yeah, so he's another Toledo harp guy. And I didn't know this, man. He's got the little lever on the side of his harp. He's got like but he was trying to explain to me how he does it. It's not even a full chromatic harp like Junior Wells played, but it has the little key on the side that does change the pitch, and he uses that. And I'm wondering what your methodology is. Do you play what they call cross harp? What's the deal with that?
So yeah, like I've got one of those harps over there. I've got a chromatic over there, and I'm trying to see if I've got the one Mud's talking about. But so I'm a cross harp player. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do, because I'm like, when I first got into harmonica, I was really, my dad is like a huge Butterfield fan, and he was like,
Oh, yeah.
Paul Butterfield, that was the beginning and end of like his like love of harp. And he actually played a harp in the band first, my dad, and got me into it. And that's how the broken foot thing. But it took me forever to figure out cross harp. And then I ran into this guy and years ago, and he was a saxophone player, and he gave me all these but he also dabbled in harmonica, and he
Yeah.
gave me all these cool like little like scales, little runs that I could do,
Yeah.
and it changed my brain. It like totally opened up a whole scales and practicing is a really lonely, boring thing for some people, but once you start getting into doing it, you unlock your entire thing. It's like it's not only just physical strength, it's also just freeing your mind. Like I wrote some of the best lyrics I ever wrote when I was working at a shoe store stocking shoes all day, where your mind just is free. And I think that's true with scales, where this guy taught me enough stuff to where then I started to figure out, okay, cross harp. Now, if I want to play in G, I got to get a C, and now, in D and A. And it really opened up everything. But it took me a while to figure out where I wanted to go and how I wanted to get there. But once I grabbed a bullet, plugged it into an amp, and started playing cross harp, and then met with Brad and connected with Brad, and he was pretty much playing everything in open G. It really made life real easy, because it was like one harp basically.
School me on this. So what you just described was, if you want to play in C, you're grabbing G. So are you always grabbing
No, other way around. So if you're in G, I'll play a C harp, and you just count backwards 4.
So you're choosing the fourth. It's like, you're choosing the harmonica that's in the key that is a fourth of the key that the rest of the band is in.
Yeah, and so when you're drawing in, you're in that. And to be fair and honest with you, I'm not like super, I can't read music.
That's okay. I can't either.
But I do know that like when you're drawing in, you're hitting all the correct notes and it sounds right.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
and then and then actually that opened up when I started playing around more with piano. I learned, oh, okay, so if I'm in G and I find an A or find a C, they'll sound good together, just in general.
Yeah.
And so it's cool, man. It's like once I learned that, I used to get into trouble back in the early days because I would, get my Lowdown before getting on stage and then grab the wrong harp because I forgot which thing. And some of the songs that we had with Clutch were like 2 different keys, so I have to switch keys real quick in harps, and I wasn't skilled enough to keep it in one, But for the most part, I kept it okay. But there was a couple stinkers here and there.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. So your dad was into Butterfield, which is awesome. I'm a Bloomfield guy, so those first 2 Butterfield blues band records just slay me to death. When I listen to, there's a part in if anybody's watching this wants to go to school today. There is, I'm sure it's on Spotify, the first Paul Butterfield Blues Band album. It's the one where they have like a smoke shop on the album cover.
Yeah.
Mellow Down Easy.
Yeah.
You know, mellow down easy, babe. Whatever it is.
Yeah. And that harp riff was like, I based a lot of what I do on that bomb, 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 you know.
Bum, 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 boom. Yeah.
My dad's band actually, they played with the Butterfield band and they would go hang out with them and stuff. And he hung out with like John Hammond and it was crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
But that song, what you can hear is when they get going, they really have like, you know, Yardbirds and all that, you know, the white boy British blues. I mean, just go home. You know what I mean? Like the Butterfield band they owned that. And
well, they had Sam Lay and they had all the right cats, you know,
they
playing
had
with
Howlin'
them.
Wolf's dudes backing them up.
Yeah.
And when they get into that interplay, where the whole band, you don't even know for sure who's playing a solo. It's just the band is together, one giant burning mess of perfect molten blues.
Yeah.
And they're all fast and they're coming at it. And then there's a moment where you hear Paul Butterfield call the band back to the one. He comes up over everyone and it's like freaking the trumpet of Gabriel bringing the band back to the cloud. Like, it's crazy. You just hear the command of it go, yeah, we're all in it. We're here. We're all gut bucket. We're doing it. And then and they all fall in line behind him. And it's, if you ever just want a master class in blues interplay, that would be a spot to go. But that was your dad's home base. And so you heard all that.
Yeah.
And what happened for you? Like, what was your listening that, you know, when you were like, I want to find me with this instrument, where did you go?
So, I mean, I started out as a punk rock kid, like we talked about earlier. You know, I was like into like, you know, all the stuff you'd like the Bad Brains and, you know, Black Flag and stuff like that. So when I discovered when I discovered blues, especially like Wolf and Muddy and stuff, I was like, damn, this is the same emotional gut bucket. I mean, clearly not mechanically the same, but like, it's that same, like, you're really singing about something important to you here. I can tell, you know? So when I got into harp, like the band there was a couple bands, it was like a weird confluence of things that happened. Like, my dad, when he turned 50, he decided he wanted to go down to the Delta and like just go hang out and like go to the Crossroads and go find. And we had started listening to like R.L. Burnside and Junior Kimbrough and stuff like that. And he's like, let's just go find him, man. Come on. So me and his friend and mine, Tom Kornacki, and my dad jumped in a minivan and drove down to like Clarksdale and just went up to like people's, like, he had a book. This is before there was like, you know, big, like, you know, like GPS or whatever. Yeah. And we just would, I think this book says that this is where like Sonny Boy Williamson's grave is. And we dug through grass in an old church. And then we found through a bunch of like different, like kind of asking people around where Junior Kimbrough's juke joint was. So we found that. We went and knocked on his door, went to R.L. Burnside's house. And that kind of stuff really like just lit me up because it all, you know, there was not even a lot of harp in that stuff. As a matter of fact, the Fat Possum guys hate harp. They've like, no, we tried to get signed with them and they're like, no, thanks. We hate harmonica. I'm like, okay. But that gut bucket stuff really just made perfect sense. It sounded exactly like what if Black Flag were a blues band, you know what I mean? And
it's also that hill country blues, you know, that stuff. Yeah. And just staying on the one for extended.
Droning out, you know.
They don't count those blues in bars. They count them in nights.
That's right.
So what year was that when you went down there?
God, I can't remember. It was like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So we went down and then so when we came back, we we went to Boogie and we're like, we need all of these records. So Toledo, Ohio, because of us and like the Soledad Brothers and a couple other bands buying stuff from there, Toledo became the #1 sales of Fat Possum records in America. Like beyond New York or LA or anything, Toledo, they were like, what the fuck is going on in Toledo? That like they were selling all these, records.
Yeah.
And it was just because everyone went nuts at the same time,
Well, you can easily see the cross-cultural connection between John Lee Hooker to the north of us and straight line down to the south of us. It's that industrial music, but also has a folk element. I mean, I think that if you're in Chicago, you're in that big city.
Yeah.
You head toward Toledo, there's a lot more of the country. And, Griffin's Hines Farm, where we were talking about earlier, that's a juke joint, but it's a different kind of juke joint than those bars in Chicago, Peppermint Lounge and all that, those spots are a different kind of place than a juke joint.
Yeah, so at Hines Farm, there's the bar,
Right.
out front, but then in the back, there's an actual old juke joint. And so when we recorded there, we slept out there like in sleeping bags.
Right.
Just because we were like, hell yeah, man. And when we found out that this place existed, we were immediately like, we have to record there. This makes the most sense, So yeah, it's definitely like a different breed than going to like BB King's club or something,
Right. Well, and like I said, it's born of technology and shaped technology. And, Muddy Waters invented the quintessential blues and then later rock and roll instrumentation to arrange music to. And it was based on the necessity of filling up the sound of one of those very loud, boisterous bars. And so he arrived at the Fender electric bass, right? Drums, obviously, but also piano, and that would be just because the bars would already have a piano from the old.
Yeah.
But 2 guitars, electrified amplified harmonica, right? And the singer. And that's the Rolling Stones. That's the band. That's all the classic, you put Derek and the Dominoes together, it's pretty much that. Although, they would swap out the harp here and there. But that instrumentation makes a lot of sense for Chicago. It makes a lot of sense for big city, big stage music.
Yeah.
That's not Toledo either. Maybe later. But if you think about like the blues of the South and Clarksdale and that Junior Kimbrough, R.L. Burnside and the many sons of Junior Kimbrough has like 80 sons and they all play great. And that instrumentation is more suitable to the working class Toledo. Just a stomping beat, pure grit, just a few players. And I think part of that's because it's a small population. So how many dudes are really going to be masters of all these instruments? No, just get a couple of dudes, tune one of the guitars low, stomp that kick drum. It's a sound that fits the people and the working class people of this area.
Yeah, for sure, man. There was like famously there was a Toledo Blues Fest that was the Fat Possum Caravan played it. So like it was, yeah, and it was like, if you remember, it was like a Sunday morning. Everyone was all super hungover. It was hot as hell, and they came out. And everyone was like, it was like perfect. And
was that the year the Squirrel Nut Zippers were there, or is that a different year? Because
I think it might have been. I think that was the year the BOC headline, but Otis Rush also played.
Okay.
It was a weird ass show, man. But it was cool because at the same time that all that was happening, my dad won this totally, again, like not related to anything, won a free trip to the Davenport Blues Festival from Blues Review magazine.
You gotta love it.
Which is hilarious because that was the second prize was an autographed guitar from the Davenport Festival, and Greg Harley from Toledo, Ohio won that. So we were first and he was second, and we're both from Toledo. But my dad and I went to that festival and caught up with all the Fat Possum cats again, like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, oh, hey, you guys are back, and so we kind of became like, I wouldn't say like homies, like we're going to, but I had RL Burnside's phone number. I used to call him and be like, hey, RL, what's
God,
up?
what
Yeah.
the hell is that like? How does he answer the
His
phone?
his grandkid. Yeah, his grandkid. Yeah, pretty much. Like I'd call him, be like, "Hello." He's like, "Call me Rule." So he was always wanting you to call him Rule. So I'd call him, be like, "May I speak to Rule?" And one of his grandkids would answer, "Grandpa, there's something on the phone for you." And he'd be like, "Hello." I'm like, "Hey, it's Eric from Toledo." He's like, "Oh man, how you doing? All right." It wasn't like a long talk, but it was cool. And then the Caravan played in Detroit, and I sat in and played harp with RL and Junior on stage at the same time.
Oh
I was
my God.
terrified. I almost peed my pants. It was terrible. It was
I would
terrifying.
I would pee my pants just to see those two men in a room.
Yeah. Well, they were together and they're like, you should come up and play. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, and of course, every harmonica player is a secret, like, yeah, you were lucky to have me. But so I went up there and they were doing Mannish Boy. So I'm just like, and that was it. So at one point, I'm standing between those guys and RL's stand. I think they were like both like sitting, but Kimbrough wanted me to stop playing because he wanted the microphone because he wanted to sing something. But RL wanted me to keep playing harp, so he kept yelling at Junior. He's like, "Let the boy play," and I was like,
Oh my God.
and I'm like, these guys are like fighting, about the microphone. And so then after the show, they were both sharing a bottle of Thunderbird, and they gave me a swig of that, and
Oh my
it was like
God.
I felt like as totally awesome as you could feel, like this is it. This is it. I'm mainlining this stuff now, you know.
You it's the sword and the stone. Let the
Yeah.
boy try.
Let the boy in. Here I am, guys.
What's the word? Thunderbird.
Let the big moon faced white kid up there do it,
That's
But
cool, man. That's
it was
cool.
awesome. It was like one of those things, and I was terrified to go up, but Brad was with me, and he's like, "Go up there, dude." I'm like, "Okay." So I went up there, and Willie Wilson, who's like a DJ around town, had put on that show around Detroit, and so I got off the phone, or I got off the stage. We left. I called my dad, like, "Dad, I just sat in with those guys. Oh my god!" And that was probably about as like surreal an experience on stage as I've had, and I've had a lot of weird ones and a lot of giant festivals and
Yeah.
stuff, but that was the most like holy mother of shit, like this is crazy.
Did you ever cross paths with Jimbo Mathis when you were down there?
I don't know if I did.
He's a guy, man. He was like, it's interesting because there's the dudes, R.L. Burnside and Junior Kimbrough, and Jimbo Mathis is kind of like the white dude that tried to, he's the Squirrel Nut Zippers guy. And then that fell apart. And I think he went deep into poverty and stuff, but he had a studio down there. And he did a record. He was recording bands down there in Clarksdale before the hurricane. And I think the hurricane screwed it all up. But I know. But he was cool, man. He was just doing live records of bands. And the one that he did down there that I always thought was this good, it was a great record because it sounds like a bunch of dudes in a hip spot, kind of like you. It's like a vacation. Like if you got a bunch of like gnarly dudes and a whole lot of Milwaukee's best, and you went down there and just said, we're going to play live in the studio and just screw it up and call it an album. It's called Jimbo Mathis and the Knockdown South. And I can't exactly remember if the album has a name, but I think it's the only thing they ever did, Knockdown South. And it's on Spotify. But it's amazing. It's just a bunch of, bleary-eyed BS.
Yeah.
It's good. But it's like
well, I remember when all those Fat Possum records started coming out, and then John Spencer got in the mix. And I remember thinking, like, get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Like, this is not what you're doing. That ass pocket full of whiskey and the loops and stuff.
Sample.
Now I listen to that record and I'm like, this is great. I'm stupid. Like, but at the time I was like, harumph. No, thank you, sir. This ain't pure, and now I'm like, this is great, you know.
No, I hear you, because it's a really, really cool record. It's just that if you are in love with R.L. Burnside, it's not an R.L. Burnside record.
Well, and the other thing is
A lot.
and they were flipping over rocks and finding all these cool guys like Dave Malone, who was like RL's cousin, put a record out that was great. There was those Sidell Davis records. Like there are all these records that they could have kept doing. And I felt like at the time, I felt like I was like, oh, John Spencer, get out of here. But again, now I think it's super cool. And he probably shined a big old light on them and made them some bucks. So, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they were like, those cats were, when I hung out with them, they were still like, you know, hand to mouth musicians, even though they were starting to take over the world, even though no one knew it. They were still like, needed a gig, man. We played a show with R.L. Burnside at Bell's Brewery.
Yeah.
And his janky old amp blew up. And so he played Brad's amp, our guitar player's amp, which has a big Ohio license plate on it. So he was like, man, you know, he didn't have an amp. He's like, can we borrow your amp? We're like, yes, absolutely. So there's a great picture. It's on Facebook of RL playing with Brad's, which was actually the Necro's old amp back in the day. It was Andy Wendler's amp.
It's an old 4-input Marshall, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an old Fender. Yeah, the four, like, and it's got the Ohio license plate on it. That was Andy's amp, who he gave to Brad, and Brad still uses. But RL was playing it in that perfect picture my dad took. But they were still hungry, man. They were, you know, even though they were like older dudes, they were like they weren't getting rich off Fat Possum, that's for sure.
I was just reading an article, and the person was talking about bias in writing, and but I think it applies to music too. The author said, people think that the truth has a point of view, but truth doesn't have a point of view. Truth is a point of view. And their authenticity is the only lens they have through which to be with music. They don't have like oh, now I'm on the job, I better turn it on. You know, they don't know that.
No, there was zero like guile. There was no faking it. It was all like they were like, when they were happy to see you, they're like, yeah, you, hello. Or when they got on stage and were rocking it. Like I remember, so RL's grandson, Cedric Burnside, played drums.
Yeah, he's the master of that. Him and one of Kimbros, they did that stomp, like right to your face.
So Cedric was like, when we hung out with them back on my dad's trip and stuff, I mean, he was little. He was playing drums with his grandpa when he was like 14, 13. But he was so nice, and like they had no idea that like people around the world were all holy shitting about them at the time. And they were like, so my dad won that festival trip. My dad had to go on stage and say thank you to this giant crowd because they'd won. And they wanted to, of course, be like the winners. And he was terrified to go on stage. And little teeny Cedric Burnside was like, it's all right, Jim. You can go up there and do it. You got this, buddy. Go. And he like gave him this little pep talk. And my dad went up there like, thanks, and then like ran off stage, you know. But like he was like, he will never forget that little kid just giving him like and actually he played Frankie's, I don't know, like 8 years ago. And I went and told him that story. He's like, I remember that. He's like, I remember your dad. He was super nervous. And, you know, they were just legit, really, like you said, there was just them, you know.
That's so great. I had no idea that you were plugged into that world, but I must say that it makes sense when you talk about the things you've done. A lot of folks will do things that don't really have anything to do with them. Like I'm kind of like this too, like playing with Jeff, and not so much. I think Todd made sense for me to play with after Junior Electric and all that. But I think that it's like a world that it's not really a part of my core. But I feel like for you to find Clutch when you found Clutch, and to find the Mississippi Hill Country Blues guys when you found them, it really feels like a logical outcropping of what you do. You know, especially if you listen to Five Horse and you listen to Clutch from back then, you know, that record where they were obsessed with outer space.
Yeah.
That
Self-titled.
okay. Had like is Escape from the Prison Planet.
Mm,
Yeah. Like I can hear that. There's a logical, oh, these people should be friends with each other.
yeah, it was weird when we found out that they were fans of ours because we were the same thing. We were like, I love the way these guys put songs together and have brought in a lot of mysticism and weird
Yeah.
like culture. Like you could tell even before they had harps and stuff in their band that they were down with like blues and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
And,
So
and as an artist, if I were to just look at your trajectory of, and I I'm catching up here a lot. Like I didn't know so much about you, but it makes sense to me that you would be less of a, I'm going to go farther on this musical uh, journey. You're more of a further. You're more of like a deeper guy. Like you're
I'm
like a,
I'm
you
pretty
went,
deep.
yeah, because Clutch brings in that kind of, it's like leaves the rocking riffs and the Black Sabbathy stuff to stew a little. Like it's stewing in this weird soup
Yeah.
that those guys were cosmic and very. I think that there was probably more smoking done at the Clutch show I was at than hippie bands I saw.
Oh,
Um,
dude, they're touring with them was hilarious. It was like the back. 'Cause I'm not a smoker, and they were
right.
like probably part of the reason they were pretty happy to have me because I mean every day, all those cats do is hit it
Yeah,
all
oh,
day long, and it's like super feck weed, man. It's not like the dirt weed you get. They never, and then they would cook with it, bake with it, eat
yeah,
everything they eat, vape it. I mean, it was like and still is nonstop. I talk to those guys all the time, and they just never. All of them just constant. So I would just drink beer all day in the bus, and they'd
right.
smoke all day. Like that was all I did all day. Was I'd be like, what kind of beer do you want? And they'd tell the promoter, and I'd try out the local beers, have a couple cases of Bud on hand every day, and just drink my year away, man. It just and they'd smoke it. Yeah.
But it makes sense that you would journey inward and then find the hill country blues and kind of journey musically inward, toward the source, if you will.
Well, I think it makes sense. I appreciate you saying that. And I think it's also just when you grow up with punk rock and your favorite band becomes your best friends, it's all, you want the real thing.
And
Uh,
but it makes sense that you would experience it that way. But looking at someone be creative is different from what it feels like to be creative. Because, you see it as I met these people and it was an opportunity and they were my friends and it just kind of happened. But that doesn't just kind of happen to anyone. It happened because you had a connection that was authentic with some authentic people.
well, and I was blessed with very cool parents who are really like, you got to do that. Like if the opportunity comes up, forget school. You can go to summer school. You got to go on tour with that band. You got to buy that amp or figure out how to play that thing. My mom is still very supportive, and my dad was like the same way. They're just like, yes, do that. Go. Don't not do it because you think you're going to do it later or you're scared. It's like, go
Yeah.
do it. So when I went and talked to Clutch or when we started Five Horse and jumped on stage without knowing how to play anything, it was just like, got to start somewhere. So
But it kind of sounds like your influences as a musician aren't even like you're not naming a bunch of harp dudes.
yeah, I mean that's true. It's more of like I mean, I've gone through my Lester Butler phase with the guy from the Red Devils where I figured out every single thing I could do about his mics and rip off his amps and his style. I went through like a whole Junior Wells thing where I was like, how can I do this? Like, and then over time, I just started to realize that like my harp playing really hasn't changed. If I listen back to recordings I did 20 years ago, it's not like I got exponentially better at harmonica or something. It's kind of that same, like there's Eric playing, like, it's not really much different. So kind of kept it stripped down. And yeah, I mean, harp players are cool, but like there's so much more to what it does and what happens in those bands. Like a lot of people get fixated on the fact that there's a harmonica and not treat it like It's just another guitar, which is the way I kind of approach it.
It's a voice with which you're singing.
It's the horn, the horn of the heart.
Yeah, I mean it's hokey, but it's kind of real. Like
I think that's the Butterfield, like I think there's actually a documentary or book.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think I've seen a little bit of it. But I kind of feel like that. I feel like playing guitar sometimes, because I really like electric guitar. I don't play a whole lot of acoustic guitar. I do. It just doesn't give me that same rush. Like I can do it, and I grew up with it, and grew up finger picking and all that. But playing the electric guitar is where I get excited. And I've gotten as I've gotten older, I realize that a lot of the ways that I've played and sounds that I've chased have been to fit into a certain thing. Like when I played with Streamlined, I had a bazillion effects because that's what you're supposed to do, is fly that spaceship. But that was a short-lived thing in my life, and now it's like really just plug a 50s style Fender guitar into a 50s style amplifier or thereabouts of a certain era, and the technology is pretty old and limited. And people are always like, man, you should, why don't you use all these cool effects and all that? And I'm like, I feel like you're doing a lot to impersonate the sound of me plugging this guitar into this amplifier. Like people actually buy electronic effects to imitate the sound of just the guitar into the amp.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally like buying a driving simulator to put on the dashboard of your car while you're driving it.
Yeah.
It's just like you're in the car. Like, what are you doing?
Well, you're yeah. Like, well, that's to that point too. Like a lot of people always ask Brad, like, where you're in the car. A lot of people always ask Brad, like, where his tone comes from or how he gets his tone. And he literally doesn't even use a pick. So there's less stuff in between. It's like he takes the guitar, like his whatever guitar, plugs it directly into his Marshall and plays with his fingers. There's no anything,
I had somebody talking to me about like, yeah, but I mean, they were like, yeah, but what are you using for the distortion? And I was like, no, I just turn up. And they're like, no, but you're playing like the clean thing, and then you go to the loud, and I'm like, it has a volume knob on the guitar, and I turn it up and down.
That's it.
And they're like, yeah, but for the distortion, I'm like, look, dude.
Look, man. We got to sit down. We got to talk about this for a minute. It's it's there. It's already there.
Yeah. And then it's funny because if you go and then they think you're crazy, but then I'll ask people, okay, guitar player or maybe harp player, what is your pinnacle? Like, what is the greatest guitar sound you ever heard? And guys like our age, they're going to name some really hip shit. Like they're going to name, oh man, that Clapton tone on the Beano record. How did he do that? He just plugged his guitar into his amp and turned it up. You know what I mean? Like that's what that is. Well, oh yeah, I guess. Or like, oh, my favorite guitar player, man, the best tone. I like that like rhythm tone you hear on the Stones, that. And I'm like, it's a guitar. It's just the same thing, man. Or all the old blues things. But I guess it's just whatever you like,
Man, well, there you go. You've convinced yourself it's okay.
It is okay. It's just not okay for me. How long have we been going? How are you feeling?
Well, I've been a little over an hour. I'm good, man. This is great. I love talking to you, buddy.
I know, this is fun. I feel like, I don't know, it's been a fun experiment to do these conversations. And I don't have any kind of agenda other than I feel like conversation is becoming a lost thing. And there's so much to say. And I want to get like John Rockwood or somebody on here to talk about the history of local blues and pick up some rocks and find stuff under there,
Yeah, John's cool. He went down with us on those Delta trips. He knew all those guys, and he's got all the info, all the intel you need, man. If you ever go to Third Street Cigars,
Oh, I've been.
All those pictures on the wall. He took all those, that whole thing. I did a whole story about him for Rise Up.
He's a family friend, actually,
Oh yeah, that's right. Of course he is. Yep.
but he's a little bit hard to get a hold of at the moment.
Yeah, he's a bit of a hermit.
Yeah.
You can find him like out and about sometimes. You just run into him at, well, not now, but like maybe at Kroger back after the crud leaves.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I saw your interview with Bunch, the first thing you did, I was like, yep, you're good at this. This is a good thing for you to do. You should continue doing this.
That's cool, man. I appreciate it.
I think the key is to be conversational and know a little bit about a lot of stuff, but not tell people what they should. You know what I mean? Like you're just good at it. It's good. That's why I forced my way on the show.
Yeah, well, that actually made my day because I've been aware of what you're doing. I do follow people, not like out there on the sidewalk or I'm not following people around, but
Not
like
literally.
no. But even like all those years I was in California, I would look and see what was going on in Toledo. It's always been a place that I care about, and not because it's a really great geography, but because it's full of really great people, and I care about its history and our local community. So,
A lot of there's always a lot of talk about, you'll do better in Toledo and 419 Day and all this jazz. But the weird thing is that this city is it's a real outlier. It's a really weird, the things that have happened and come out of this city, everyone says it about their own city. Everyone's going to be like, Fort Wayne #1 or whatever. But like the stuff that just is happening right now or is going to happen or has happened recently coming out of the city and related to it is crazy. I mean, the amount of, you name a thing, whether it's Sub Pop or, like Ryko Disc or, Gloria Steinem, like all the things that have come directly out of like this city is so strange, and like I've been a lot of places, I've toured around, but when I come back home, I'm always like, okay, I'm back to like where people are actually understanding what the hell's going on. I mean, it's not without its, warts, but it's just weird the amount of, Jeff Nelson lives across the street from me. I grew up hanging out with the Necros, like it's so crazy, all the Blues Cats and Heinz Farm. And if I tell people like, yeah, we recorded where T-Bone Walker played, there are a lot of people in this country that wouldn't even been near where he played, so.
Yeah, man, I get, it breaks my heart. A lot of people don't like, if you say T-Bone Walker, there's a sound that appears in my brain.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't have that anymore. I have coworkers at the university that are, I'm a lot older than them. They've never listened to the Beatles or, and that's like that's candy pop. I mean, it's great. It's perfect. It's beautiful. It's my favorite rock and roll band. And if you're an American, you better know what Duke Ellington sounds like.
Right.
You need to know that stuff. Like you need to know who the founding fathers are. Like you need to know if you're going to walk around and breathe air and try to, hopefully there's some portion of being alive that means I want to feel the depths of what it is to be a human who lives and breathes. And that path should lead to some spots. I mean, you should pass through some Muddy. You should arrive at some Duke. There should be a little Count Basie in there. You're going to find some bebop. Shoot, you might even find yourself someday in Western Europe and enjoying some classical music, that blows your mind. And it's sad that I guess all I'm trying to say is there's a certain kind of curiosity that to me feels prerequisite to having a complete life.
I agree. I mean, we've done a lot beyond just the city. I mean, you listen to jazz, there isn't much jazz that wasn't important, that wasn't made by us, and Crusher knows, right? Right,
Toledo's,
dude.
Toledo's like, you will do better in Toledo, and the world will almost hear about that.
I mean, widely considered the most important piano player in I like it. Widely considered the most important piano player in the world. I mean,
Art Tatum.
right here.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's really a special thing. There are, and having traveled to a lot of small weird towns. When I was working on the road, that's what I did. Is I was in cool places, but mostly little tiny weird places. And every one of them has its own, the world's greatest taffy. Like their own things that are like their thing. Um, and it's always, they're full of it the minute they start talking. Well,
Yeah.
this is the home of them. Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we
Okay.
go. We made all the shoelaces, homie. It's
Yeah.
just, like, and Toledo is one of those quirky places. It's just that I think maybe because it's so close to Detroit and the automotive industry, and it was a major hub of industry, and so all those weird little doodad things that people made in all those towns, we made a lot of stuff and important stuff. I mean, we made, like I drive a Jeep, and just what Jeep is to American culture is beyond just a cool car that was designed. I mean, I can't help, every time I think about a Jeep, I think about it rolling over a Nazi. I mean, it's just like, I can't help it.
Yeah. I mean, back to the music part too. I mean, Jarman pickups were made over there. It's like those powered everything forever. Built right here.
Sitting about 8 feet away from me, I would show you, but currently it's covered. It's a table for all my school stuff at the moment. But right over here is my favorite amplifier that I play through every day, and it is the prototype amp for that DeArmond built. They were building amps for Martin, because I don't know if you remember these old Martins that have, well, like Kurt Cobain played a Martin with pickups on it, and
Right.
they're DeArmond pickups. Well, when they made that deal with Martin, they needed amplifiers, and so DeArmond was manufacturing these really overbuilt Fender circuits. And not to get way too geeked out, but they basically took the same circuit that Fender used for the 5E3 Fender Deluxe, the Neil Young amp, and they overbuilt it so that it would have more, so you could plug an acoustic type instrument into it and have clarity. Of course, it's late 50s clarity, isn't that clarity? So it's just it's like a Tweed Deluxe, which sounds like a fart in a good way, like, it's a great sound. Well, this one just gives you all that low end and all that high end. So it's just, you hit it and it's just a nice solid thwack. Anyway, I've got it over there, and it is my pride and joy, and extraordinarily rare. The production model DeArmonds are selling for $5,000 and $6,000, and this is like the prototype that was rescued when they took down the factory.
That's crazy. I had Ken Zerker on the show, and he used to work at DeArmond.
Yeah,
and they named one of their pickups after his pickup truck.
How so?
Yeah. Like I forget the line number. It was like the N200. They named after he had like a little truck that had the factory number was that, so they named it. I'll send you a link to the story I did with him.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Like they named it. It was just like a weird, like he worked there. They needed a name for a line of pickups, and they're like,
right.
Call it this. Like, okay,
We have to do this again.
Yeah.
Do you have anything going on right now that people should know about? Because it's kind of a weird time, right, for the arts. And
so, yeah, I mean, really just the main thing is that BCAN is, we're just doing as much as we can to kind of like alleviate people's, tough times right now. I mean, it's not really, I mean, we're still just a TV network. We're not curing anything, but hold on one second. Cat's digging into my grill cloth. Stop it.
Naughty kid.
I heard that noise. You know that cat digging in the grill cloth sound. You know that.
It's my worst nightmare when your stuff is like when your gear is from the 50s and 60s. You get real pissed when a cat claws it.
Yeah. So we've been doing these, like those things I was telling you about with Rise Up Live, where we're having everyone just kind of like submit um, their, like the way we're doing it right now. Basically, they're playing in their living room or their garage or whatever. Send me the video. We'll run it. We'll give you your own half-hour episode because everyone's out of work. No one's working. Especially like the people that are like solo artists. I mean, that's their income, man. Like if you're,
yeah,
I don't know, pick someone. There's a million I can think of, but
Tim Ohlers.
Yeah, like Jeff. Like Jeff Stewart. Like I had him on. I mean, that guy plays every night normally. So it's like he people are sending me stuff. All we're doing is giving them a half-hour episode of running their PayPal or Venmo info at the bottom, and just give their we'll rerun it as much as we can and try to use our powers for good.
Well, I've been saying since before the pandemic that's the future of music anyway.
Yeah.
I prefer that. I don't want to go to the bar. I want to see that.
Well, and it's funny because I wonder what'll happen once this is over, because I've been having so many people have submitted stuff and they're getting really good at it. So everything is TV ready. I mean, I don't need to go to a venue anymore. I mean, for the most part, although I will. But so I mean, that's really what's going on. Is that show is basically like a way for us to kind of like get people in front of all the people on cable TV, and then Rise Up is just a monthly kind of like love story to Toledo music. So we've done stuff with Reverend Guitars. We've done stories about DeArmond. Every local band you could think of has done an interview and a live thing. We do, concert stuff and try to just do jazz things, classical blues, whatever we can get our hands on. And I just try to make my friends be on my TV show for the most part. But yeah, it's been great. And it's been 3 years we've been doing it. And that's just keep watching, I guess. So
I think the future is small venue, think like a little tiny theater, very intimate, but not many people, small stage, and it's live, but it's also streamed. I think we're going to wind up in a hybrid place. I think it's going to be all online for a while. And then people are going to want a physical destination that they pay an extreme premium for. And we'll end up with small gatherings, but then it'll be a different experience. It won't be walking into Frankie's. It'll be finding your assigned seat and being there for the taping.
So one of the stories we did on Rise Up was I did an interview with Todd Albright, who's, Todd, he's like a local guy who moved to Detroit. And now he records on Third Man. And the day we did the interview, the Rock on Tours had started their tour. This was over the spring or summer. And they were like, all those guys that work at Third Man are like super, they're mensches. They're all super nice, cool, like love of music people. And they're like, hey, Jack's playing tonight. You want to stay and check it out? And we're like, yeah, of course. So they took Third Man, and that they have a small stage in there, and they have a perfect sounding stage and a perfect sounding little teeny PA. I would suspect that more people have seen music on that stage come out of there and be streamed than they probably have in all of the other shows in Detroit combined, and it's under controlled circumstances. They take your phone away, so there's none of those crappy videos of someone playing that sounds like shit and looks terrible. And they film their own thing, and they control the whole shebang. And I think to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, that is totally, I can see how it would be done, because it's a very small little venue, perfect sounding, looks great. You shoot it right, make it good. You're going to have a really good quality thing. I've seen live streams from there. I've seen, Clutch are doing live streams from their rehearsal spot now, which is a really nice rehearsal spot. And that's probably getting more eyeballs than a lot of their tours, so.
Yeah. Have you seen the Jeff Beck live at Ronnie Scott's thing?
No.
Um, it's the right vibe for the future of live music because they're loud enough, but it's still intimate. Now, Ronnie Scott's is not a tiny club, but if you watch that video, and you can YouTube it, Jeff Beck live at Ronnie Scott's, and if you watch it, for all you know, it's a tiny little space. And I mean, unless they sweep over the whole crowd, but it's tight cameras, multi cameras, and they're making a record, but it's in front of an audience. And anyway, if you want to help local artists when all this starts to come together, I'll team up with you, buddy. Let's build it.
Let's do it. Deal.
All right.
Yeah, we did. We did Rock Palast. We played that show.
That's
The German,
cool.
Yeah, Five Horse did that, and it was the same things. Tiny little place,
Yeah.
like crane cameras.
Yeah.
Place was packed. It looked like, amazing, but it was just, and ran all over into all of Europe. Like the whole show, the broadcast did. It was pretty amazing.
It's the future, and if you ever want, I think it'd be cool to do like how we're just kind of shooting the breeze. It'd be cool to do like the late night TV shows, how they're all on YouTube now, like how it's just like little bits.
Yep.
I think that could be cool.
Yeah, man. I'm producing in my PJs all day now instead of having to go to the office, so I'm fully on board. It's good.
It'd be great, right? It'd be cool.
Yes.
All right, well, let's wrap up. I'm gonna hit the stop button. Everybody, don't forget to click like and subscribe. And where can they find you online?
You can find me at EO419 pretty much anywhere. It's like if you on Twitter or whatever. BCANarts.com is our website. We put all the stuff we do. Most of it goes up there. And then we're on Buckeye 109609. So
there you go. And I'm Tony Lowe, yo.
Tony, it's been a pleasure, dude. This is great. Do more all the time.
Okay, deal. All right, I'm going to hit stop recording.